Thank you for joining me on Hogville YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. It is Tuesday night. We had a wee early hours of the morning Tuesday release. We've got to get back on. I told you I'd come back on live later the same day if something broke, and boy, a lot was shaking, breaking, and Calipari was making things happen. It was a busy Tuesday. You know, he was out Monday. We talked about it earlier this morning. I guess I put that podcast out right after midnight. So technically today, but almost a full day since. The fact that Calipari was in the Cincinnati area, which is where Newport, Kentucky is, a suburb on the other side of the Ohio River, as someone reminded me. I was going off my memories back in 1984 when I was 15 years old about being in that area. And you know, the Newport, Kentucky area is sticking with me. Why it was important, why Calipari was there. Yesterday, we speculated. We said it could be for anything. It could be a speaking engagement. It could be a lot of stuff. And we came to the conclusion he was there to see Tate Kenny. Newport, Kentucky is where he's from. And Calipari's been recruiting this kid back when he was a head coach at Kentucky. In-state kid, again, greater Cincinnati area, not too far away from Lexington, by the way, about an hour and a half. So pretty close. But the fact that Calipari continued to prioritize, continued to send staff members out to see him play. We've known for a while that he's got this Arkansas official visit date set for later this month, September 26th, through the 28th, a Friday, Sunday deal. Then it came out recently that not only did he cancel visits to Miami and to Texas, and that Arkansas would then maybe hold as that last visit, it also came out that he's making as an announcement, a commitment announcement on Sunday, September 28th. So we've talked over and over again the last few episodes, not just last night or early this morning, that didn't make a lot of sense if Kansas, which it's also emerged, most of the national media that cover basketball recruiting coming out and saying Kansas is going to get this guy. You know, so you're thinking, okay, the Arkansas visit, what we've said, we went through like basically three ways this could go. Either that visit gets canceled because it's a position of weakness to bring him in on that weekend when he's going to announce, and it looks like, you know, it's probably going to be Kansas. Or the other thing was, and we talked about it again this morning or / last night, could Arkansas be moving up his visit? And I said what made most sense was a midweek visit because Arkansas already has 2 official visitors coming in over the weekend. So we telegraphed that a little bit. Earlier today, I had an article I wrote where there might be a mystery guest and maybe it's coming in through the weekend, but I was waiting for this to pop and it finally did because I couldn't imagine Calipari spending so much time. Remember, the second day of this live recruiting period that opened up a couple of weeks ago, technically on Wednesday, September 3rd, on the next day, Thursday, September 4th, Calipari was in Atlanta at Overtime Elite to see Kinney. Tate Kenny, again, 5-star guard, class of 2026, 6'2". I covered him. I've covered him on the Adidas circuit, watched him play, you know, in person many times, put out highlights, put out an interview from him back in May. Well, now what I speculated would probably happen is if Arkansas was going to keep the visit, that it was likely to be moved if that were to happen. The only other option would be to keep it for that weekend because you know you're getting him and he can announce on the last day of his visit. But this has not felt like it was going in that direction. So midweek visit, sure enough, it's going to happen tomorrow. It came out late this afternoon, early evening. Tate Kenny is bumping up his Arkansas visit to start tomorrow. A midweek visit begins Wednesday. By the time he's wrapping that up is when Arkansas is bringing in Air Fandion, Jordan Smith Jr. It has been a hectic night. Calipari was out to Florida earlier today. I wrote an article about this to see a trio of 5-star players, top 10 5-star players, 3 of them at the same new prep school, Southeastern Prep Academy in Orlando. And one of the offers, he extended 2 offers. One kid already had an offer. We're going to go through all of that. But one of them was Beckham Black, who we've talked a lot about, another young player I've seen and covered in person going back the last couple of years, at least a handful of times at different events. So probably, if counting up all the games I've seen him play in person, well over 10. Just an extraordinary talent like his brother, Anthony Black, pro hog. So a chance to be a legacy. We know Calipari loves those legacies. So it was just such a bit, and this information with the offer, Beckham Black reported that late this afternoon as well. So it's been a lot of stuff flying around. Right before I came on, I had one of the staff members on Arkansas's coaching staff, not one of those external, down the line folks, sending me a text from the airport, getting on a flight. Arkansas is busy. The staff is traveling around. Again, Calipari in Florida today. He made a stop in Jacksonville early, and then it was down to Orlando to see Beckham Black and some other guys. Well, let's talk Tate Kenny. Let's really get into that because here we go. Visit starts tomorrow. Does this change anything in my mind about whether or not Kansas is the leader? No, but it opens the door to the possibility that Calipari is in a better position than maybe some of the national analysts think right now, because this now boils down to two things. Now that we know the visit date's been moved, which I said would have to happen, or you're in a position of weakness if it's true Kansas is the leader. And I think that's probably true because of the Calipari trip out yesterday to the Cincinnati area, to Newport, or even if Tate Kenny's still at Overtime Elite down in Atlanta, which I doubt, coming out of the weekend because he'll be on Arkansas's campus tomorrow. So even if he was yesterday, the Kinney family's in Newport, and Calipari was there to maybe shore some things up. So two things now where this stands with me. Either Kansas is the leader, and this is your best shot to get him on, go through with the visit. There's been a great relationship there. You want to make sure you get him on campus before you let go of it, and you're still playing from behind. Or Arkansas's position is better than we thought. Maybe that position, NIL, maybe, other things maybe on the table, has been improved to the point where there's not a reason right now to cancel a visit because you're going to Kansas. Maybe that decision's not been fully made. Maybe Arkansas's right there or close, with a chance. I just don't see Calipari following through, consummating a visit, unless he's being told, not just his gut instincts and hopes, but maybe he's getting enough information from the Kinney camp that this thing's not over and he's got a real shot and they really appreciate and respect the relationship. I just don't see him going through the motions of just doing this because of a relationship when he's got two big visitors coming in this weekend. Look, we reported, this was talked about last week. I wrote about this as well. Calipari, and then we talked about it on last night's show. Calipari late last week, the idea was he was going to go out to New York this week. Okay, so the Arkansas staff member this is going to be breaking news. I'm going to cut things off for a minute. We'll get back to the Ratliff twins. I was able to read the notification. Woo-wee! I'm not very good at that, am I? But I got it. All right, Arkansas staff member, one of the assistant coaches, I told you there, was texting me from the airport. Out to see Caleb Holt. One Caleb Holt who took an official visit. We've raved about that visit. The first of all these back-to-back will now be 4 consecutive weekends with visitors, but the first with multiple players, again, Air Fandion, Jordan Smith Jr. Then you've got Tate Kenny right before that. So 3 visitors basically Wednesday through Sunday. Well, you just held back-to-back 3 visits on separate weekends, though. So 2 weeks basically bookended by 3 weekends. The first of those with Caleb Holt. Arkansas staff member out to see him. I won't name that staff member right now, but just got the notification that been out to see Caleb Holt, class of 2026, top 5 rated 5-star. You got real-time intel as it was coming over to me. I was prying for this stuff like I do everything, working every angle in the trenches. We don't step halfway. We don't come incorrect. We don't borrow from other national analysts or local ones that are actually doing the work and then come talk about it like we own it. We don't do that. That's not how we roll. The thing about Calipari going out to West Plains, New York, to Archbishop Stepanak, was to go see the Ratliff twins, the 7-footers. The idea was Chuck Martin's been out to see them a couple of times since the recruiting period opened up. Brad Calipari, John's son, who's on the Arkansas staff, went with Martin last week. And then we were talking at the end of the week, and I wrote about this, that Calipari might be going out this week to see both. But when we came on yesterday, I had gotten source information, intel from the Stepanak coaching staff telling me, no, doesn't look like he's coming out. That's not going to happen. So we talked about that on last night or early this morning, however you want to frame it, on that episode. Well, it makes sense now. He doesn't have time to. He was in Florida today to see those 2027 high caliber prospects, top 10 rated, each one of those 5-stars. But got to get back, because why? Because Tate Kenny, you've got pressing matters. You're bringing Tate Kenny in starting tomorrow. So it helps explain why things change. Things change all the time in recruiting. We talk about it. Visit dates, they either disappear or they move up or they stand pat as expected, as planned. Those things happen. It's good to hear that Arkansas staff's out to see Caleb Holt. He's had back-to-back visits to Kentucky and Alabama on weekends following his late August visit to Arkansas, where things went so well, we called it a grand slam home run and said, if he doesn't take any more visits and shuts it down, Arkansas is going to be the choice. He's taking other visits. I think Arkansas is ahead of Kentucky. Alabama, I'm not sure about right now. I think it's a good sign that Arkansas is out. And it tells me that Calipari, likely, my guess here is that Calipari's not finished going out to see and visiting again with Caleb Holt after having him on campus and having such a great weekend visit. But Tate Kenny, is it Kansas? Is that really? I mean, if that's really where this is going, I'm surprised that Calipari, if he sees that, believes that he's making this visit happen, whether now or that weekend when the announcement would happen just as you're finishing your Arkansas visit. That's bad optics, but I'm not sure that that's the case right now. I just don't think Calipari, I don't think he invests as much time as he has going out twice now, once in Atlanta, the other yesterday, Cincinnati, without getting some kind of feedback that things are better in Arkansas's, pursuit of this player. And again, the relationship, how far it goes back. I mentioned this a million times. The first known offer that Calipari made to that class of 2026, once he became Arkansas's coach, that was April of last year. So, barely over a year, 15 months, whatever. First offer to 2026 was to Tate Kenny. It wasn't Tyron Stokes. It wasn't J.J. Andrews. I say this all the time. The kid was on his campus for unofficial visits when he was at Kentucky. The staff has been courtside for everything they can be. I'll never forget when I came back from the Adidas 3SSB circuit, which is where Tate Kenny, the circuit he plays on it. We talked so much about that Adidas money, trying to get long-term deals with the guys they've had on their circuit, and then they effectively funneling them to Adidas-sponsored schools like Kansas, like Louisville, the home state school that was perceived the leader for so long until Kansas really kind of grabbed, Bill Self, who's shocked there, right? And that Kansas visit was, I think, maybe the weekend before Caleb Holt was Arkansas's first official visit weekend guy to set off this domino effect of, a parade of five stars coming in. But either way, Kenny was a guy that Arkansas coaches prioritized. And when I went and watched him back in May and interviewed him, I also watched Deron Rippey Jr., another lead guard, another five-star guard, highly coveted guy, all the big, blue bloods and other high major programs after him as well. And Arkansas was recruiting him as well, but they didn't ever set up a visit and never went too far in terms of, I think they really wanted Kenny to understand he was their priority at the lead guard spot. When you look at guys like Caleb Holt, bigger guard, 6'5", Brady McCoy Jr., who then took a visit to Arkansas, another great weekend visit for McCoy and Arkansas. By the way, he's going to visit Miami. He's got a visit scheduled to Miami. He's also previously visited Duke, but another big guard, 6'5". Jordan Smith Jr. coming in this weekend, still a combo guard. I mean, he's listed as a two guard by a lot at 6'2". We've talked about that. But Kenny's really the point guard that Arkansas has coveted in this class. In the previous two classes, Calipari's had his way getting Darius A. Cup Jr., a lead guard, score first kind of guy. Before that, Boogie Fland. I would say that Kenny's probably, if you're talking about three-point shooting based on what I've seen in person, maybe more comparable to Boogie in terms of having a higher ceiling as a three-point shooter. I think his setup craft as a facilitator and scorer is a bit more refined in some ways than some of the players in this class that play lead guard. He is really crafty. He's an above the rim finisher. I've seen him listed 6'1", 6'2". I feel like he's at least 6'2". And defensively, he's locked in. He's a guy that plays with a passion on defense. Now, there are nuances to the defensive side. He's going to have to learn like most young players. I wouldn't claim a lockdown guy, but he's probably better than advertised defensively. But offensively, he can go off. But he also isn't the guy that, you're expecting to go out every night and get 20 or 25. He can do that, but he looks to get teammates involved. And again, I like his athleticism, and I like his determination as a lead guard, because I think he plays with an understanding. I've got to set the table for others, and I got to actually lead a team. He's got a good understanding of that for a young guy. And so there's a lot to like about him. You understand why Kansas wants to win this. Louisville, again, some of the schools that have been in the mix. And then the in-state schools, again, outside of Louisville, Kentucky, was a program that had been on him after Calipari left. So Kinney would be a great addition if you can somehow find a way to get that one. I'm not holding my breath on it, but I do think it's encouraging. I believe it's encouraging that Calipari still feels like he's in it, because I think there's no other way that he's bringing this kid in now or later. And we even said it probably wouldn't be later because of that decision date. The only thing that made sense to me was get him in sooner and try to make up that ground and give him something to think about in that time. If you knew you were getting him and everybody else was wrong, why not keep your visit date September 26th to the 28th and let him announce that afternoon, because that's the announcement date. So that's kind of where my thinking is, not knowing 100%. But our speculation last night coming on, why Calipari was in that Cincinnati area was spot on. I told you, I said, I don't know for sure. Maybe he's there to do a speaking engagement. But I said, here's what I think it is. And we went through all of that. I even told a personal story about how I remembered Newport being right outside Cincinnati. Driving through there at 15 years old and thinking, we have a Newport, Arkansas, Newport, Kentucky. And that just kind of stuck with me, something weird for all these years. That was back in the summer of '84. All right, so that's the Tate Kenny stuff. Let's keep our eyes open. How exciting is it to bring in, I've got him ranked 12th in my prospect rankings for that class, my top 25 for 2026, a 5-star. Most of the services have him in that range, 12, 13, something like that. So that's the quality of the player, in addition to these other two guys coming in on the weekend. Fandion, his guardian, Alex Victor, just sent me a text before I came on as well, saying, hey, Kev, let's have a conversation tomorrow. By the way, Jordan Smith Jr.'s dad, what we talked about last night, we brought you intel. We're nearly 17 minutes in. I got more intel for you. The dad and I talked yesterday, and then I did last night's late segment, actually after midnight, so whatever, a.m. today. I keep going there. But we told you that, he's going to, several things, the visits being kept. They have an itinerary. And some of the other stuff was they probably are going to wait till the spring, because in addition to the Arkansas visit this coming weekend and then Kentucky in October, he'd have time then to make a decision, because that's really it for official visits, his dad told me. Except they are going to wait till the spring, and they're going to plan to go see some basketball games of the teams that are in the hunt. Duke. They're going December, I think it's either December 2nd or December 3rd. I don't think I gave you specifics last night, but it's Duke, Florida in the ACC SEC Challenge. We know Arkansas is hosting Louisville in that same event on December 3rd. It's a midweek game. But his dad called me back today just saying, hey, I told you, I'd forgotten when we spoke that he wanted to give me more details about their visit itinerary to Arkansas this weekend when he got more of those details. And I'd kind of forgot about it. So I was on the phone with somebody else getting intel. When he was calling me, I'm like, oh, got to grab this one. I'll call you back. So I grab it. It's Jordan Smith Jr.'s dad saying, hey, I'm following up with you. Here's some more time frames and things. Can't share those here, but it helps me in my process of coming back later and sharing stuff with you. But then we started talking a little bit more. And I said, when you're waiting until the spring like that, I know you're going to attend basketball games. Is there a chance really for some other teams to work their way in, NIL or something else? Well, what he said doesn't mean he'll hold true to that if something is attractive enough. But he said, no, we're rolling with the teams. It's a short list for him. It's never been a bunch of hoopla and a bunch of, stuff that you find out at the last minute. It's kind of been dropped as, well in advance. And, his son has talked about maybe adding other teams, but the dad's told me the same thing every time. No, we're keeping it. We're limiting it to this teams. He also told me today, this is new intel, that they are going to, during this visit, try to identify a Razorback basketball game they can come to Bud Walton Arena for later. So he'll be potentially making a second trip back to Fayetteville between now and the spring. Nobody wants to live with the reality, if you're a Hog fan, of having to wait that long to find out if you're going to get a player or not. Duke's been the perceived leader. I've given you guys intel all along the way, really good sources, checking back with those through the week now that this visit's here. Most of them think it's probably going to end up being Duke. Georgetown, basically the backyard school, in the mix. Kentucky's getting a visit next month. Arkansas is perceived, probably most people you talk to, in the top two. Others think it's Duke and Georgetown. But it seems like Duke's always mentioned in that top two, and by most as number one. So we'll see. The family loves Calipari and this coaching staff. I know that. Everything you hear out of the mouth is it's a great relationship. This was great. The visit, Calipari went out and saw him the first day of this live recruiting period out there in Virginia. Remember that? Wednesday, September 3rd. That was great. Everything's been great. They love Calipari's ability to get players to the next level, especially guards. I've been mentioning a lot about these first three. We've come on and given you intel after these first three OVs with Caleb Holt, then Brandon McCoy, Abdou Toure, who we haven't even talked about yet. Just wrapping up that OV. We've said we feel like Arkansas's leader, co-leader with UConn, Providence in the mix. This is all about, does Calipari want to seal the deal on that player and make that happen? I think he gets him. But all three of those visits, the intel has been consistently with each, is that Calipari's pitch is so good. It's not just about what he's done, but how he's going to specifically help each individual player maximize their value positionally, not just how they've been, painted in a corner or pigeonholed for this position or this, how they can maybe be more versatile defensively to guard multiple positions. On offense, how to put more in their repertoire to be valuable beyond just one or two things. And I think a lot of coaches probably go there. The problem with that they have that Calipari doesn't have is oh yeah, now that I've told you what I'm doing for you, let's look back at what I've already done for other players. I mean, Cason Wallace is a great point in a player comparison I've made to Jordan Smith Jr., a guy that, a combo guard, learning more and more to be a lead guard, play more on the ball. And then some of that stuff, he started, cutting his teeth in those areas when he moved on from high school to Calipari in that one and done season. And that's been a recent example of so many. So, those are the kind of things. And so as we continue to look ahead and look at this, Jordan Smith Jr., that's what he's got to look forward to this weekend. The same with Fandion, the 7-1 center. Houston's the perceived leader there. Iowa United Prep is the school. He just took a visit to Kentucky. Mark Pope, we told you guys first that Pope's wife is the sister of the new head coach, the first-year head coach at Iowa United Prep. Archibald is their last name. I forget the first names momentarily here. I think that's right. Either way, there's ties there. Now, Kentucky was a little bit later in the mix for Fandion. Houston's been the team that his guardian, Alex Victor, who's my main source. I get information from Fandion as well, but a lot with Alex Victor has told me Houston's the leader. So, I mean, I have to take it at face value unless he's, running a good game for Calipari and Arkansas is going to shock the world or whatever. But Arkansas is getting him on campus, and that gives Arkansas a big chance. The other thing that is interesting, I tweeted this earlier today. Arkansas commitment. Let's not forget Arkansas is already off to a great start, right? They're ahead of most of the programs in the country, and with the commitment of a top 5 rated, how I've got it, top 10 to me, no doubter. But hovering with some of the services, now a 5-star with all but one. Jashawn J.J. Andrews right here in the 501, baby, Little Rock Christian Academy. He's been committed since mid-May. And what's going on with that? Because we've been talking about how the staff's told me he's been recruiting everybody helping recruit everybody that for this class to help himself when he gets on campus and bring in a good group, right? They all got one more year of high school in this 2026 class, but this is when the recruiting really matters right now because of this early period coming up in November, if you can get them early. So what does that mean, though? How he's helping recruit everybody? Well, something interesting. Jashawn J.J. Andrews will be in Fayetteville on Saturday. He's part of some basketball camp promotion that's got a September 20th date in Fayetteville. And he put out on his social media, on his Instagram, a poster with him on it. It's basically under his name, this camp. It's called a Pro Camps. I can't remember the sponsor, one of the sponsors for it, but he's going to be in Fayetteville this weekend. Is there any chance that he drops in somewhere, Performance Center maybe, when visitors are in there and it's kind of one of those Darius A. Cup Jr. things? Look, we talked so much about how well those two played together at MBPA Top 100 camp, those two, Jashawn J.J. Andrews, Fandion. Then they recently played again together in the Mamba League Invitational just a few weeks ago out in Los Angeles. They were on the same team. So a lot of 5-on-5 stuff where those guys played well together. And then to hear Alex Victor, the Guardian, he continues to bring it up to me unsolicited. Oh, by the way, we really like the chemistry with Airfan and J.J. Andrews. They play well together. We've said that on here. That he'll just bring that up, throw that out to me without me asking about it again. So those are things that help Arkansas. And if Andrews is going to be in Fayetteville this weekend, do you try to seize on that and get him in the building somewhere at some point in the weekend while he's up there to get in the ear of Air Fandion. Jordan Smith Jr., they played on the same circuit. I've said this all along. Jordan Smith Jr., the best two-way player in the country, regardless of position, regardless of class. I had that conversation with his dad today when he called me. We were going through some of the stuff. I went back through some of the stuff I saw back in May when I watched the first game. I saw Jordan Smith Jr. in the first few minutes of the game. And I'll tell you what I told his dad. This is what played out. After a defensive rebound by the other team, he stayed in the backcourt. It was a big man trying to get the ball to another guard to bring the ball up for that team, and Jordan Smith Jr. just stuck back and created all kinds of hell and havoc. He was a menace, getting deflections on the initial pass, so you couldn't outlet, and it slowed down everything. The shot clock's running, the big man's trying to get off the ball. Then he does get the ball, to his teammate, and Jordan Smith Jr. just hounds him all the way up the court, deflects the ball away from him. The guard recovers possession, still has it. Jordan Smith Jr. then deflects the pass the guard tries to make to a teammate. And then after a very much disruptive offensive set, Jordan Smith Jr. gets the defensive rebound at 6'2", explosive long arms, and then just bodies his way all the way, bully balls us all the way to the other end of the court for a transition layup. So I walked through a little more clearly with his dad earlier what I just repeated here for you guys, but it's that kind of stuff. I think he's the best two-way player in the country, and I think Jashawn J.J. Andrews is not far behind, and I think he's the best two-way player on the wing spot at his position. So put those two together. There's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to sell. There's a lot of reasons to have J.J. in the room somewhere this weekend if they can do it. All right, 27 minutes in. Let's not sleep on the fact. Let's transition to this stop in Florida, in Orlando, Florida today by John Calipari to see a trio of top 10 rated 5-stars in the 2027 class. You can't solely focus on this current class. It's got to be your main focus, but you can't lay down and not do the work on the next class. And Beckham Black, man, this dude, I've seen him play so many times. King Cotton Holiday Classic in Pine Bluff when he was at Duncanville. Now he's at Southeastern Prep in Orlando. Obena Akizi, a 6'11", 7-footer, big center, top 5 rated 5-star in the 2027 class. Let's just do these. These are ESPN rankings. Akizi is the number 5 overall player, a 5-star. Beckham Black, 9th overall, top 10, 5-star. Now 6'3". When I started, or that's what he's listed at. I don't know if he's fully there. I've been around him enough to see that he's grown and much taller, including back in May, again, back in Memphis when I was talking a lot with his brother, Anthony Black. We actually put a video interview out on social media at that time. But we've been conversations with his mom, Jennifer. Beckham Black was on campus back in January and was there for that loss, Arkansas's home loss to Oklahoma in that miserable 1-6 start in league play. That was the end of it, that loss. And Arkansas started winning games, beginning with a road trip to Kentucky in the following game after a midweek bye. Remember that? But Beckham Black was there with Jennifer Black, his mom, to take in that game. But you've seen Arkansas and Calipari hand out a bunch of offers to at least 3 class of 2027 point guards, league guards, going back a while, going back to July. And he'd been real quiet with Beckham. And, I know the family talking to them and them personally telling me, we want Arkansas to recruit us. We love Arkansas. It's no doubt Anthony Black does. He was on campus just a few weeks ago when Arkansas's football season opened up with that home game against Alabama A&M. He was in the Performance Center. Caleb Holt was on his visit. In my interview with Caleb Holt that I also put on social media and YouTube, you can go check it out on the heels of that visit. When I interviewed him the day that the visit had just wrapped up, he talked about interacting with AB. And the fact that AB was talking to him about what it means to play at Arkansas. So here's a young man that loves the program in Anthony Black. And I know the family does. And Beckham's been on campus. I mentioned January, but he came on Anthony Black's official visit and other times that he was on campus. He was certainly there for games during Anthony Black's one-and-done season before going in the NBA lottery, draft lottery, first rounder, 6th overall player to the Orlando Magic. So there's every reason to understand why Calipari, who loves legacies, by the way, look at his first Arkansas team, Adu Thero, Carter Knox and Billy Richmond III. Those are all legacy players because they had an immediate relative who played for Calipari somewhere, all 3 of them. And so, now this isn't a player that's played for Calipari, but it's an Arkansas legacy if he were, to end up being a Razorback, right? Because Anthony Black played here just recently. So class of 2027, high school junior, now no longer in Duncanville, again in Orlando. I mentioned the offer that went out to him today, and he tweeted that out, as did Akizi, who we just mentioned, the 7-foot center. He got that Arkansas offer extended today. The other top 5 rated 5-star on that team is a guy we've talked a lot about, CJ Rosser, 6'9" combo forward. Also, all 3 of these guys, class of 2027, out of Mount Rocky, North Carolina, mentioned back in May when I was there in Memphis for that first live eval session, Calipari, Chin Coleman there. I was putting out highlights. Akeem Olajuwon had been courtside for the game that I was at. Calipari was there, but watching CJ Rosser. Now, he's a top 5 player as well, 4th ranked, so the highest of these 3, just ahead 1 spot of Akizi and 5 spots ahead of Beckham Black. But Rosser was now he's had his Arkansas offer for a while. In fact, Calipari and the staff reached out to him at midnight, June 15th, which was the first moment that Division I coaching staffs could have direct contact with prospects from the class of 2027. So you go back to mid-June, and he got that Arkansas offer around that time. And remember, it was May again at that first live eval session that Calipari was consistently courtside for CJ Rosser's game. Versatile guy, guy that can defend the rim some, shoot the 3, get out in transition. He's got some good soft skills. A lot of your 6'8" to 6'10" guys now, even taller sometimes, are adding those, soft skills, those face the basket, stretch it out to the 3-point line. He's one of those guys, Jabari Smith, recent player at Auburn. There's some things that were memorable or things about his game that remind me a little bit of Jabari Smith, who's now in the NBA and been with the Houston Rockets. So, but Calipari, again, out to see those guys today and made 2 offers while he was there. Getting back, I'm sure, in time to be ready to host Tate Kenny tomorrow. Again, he was out to see Tate Kenny's camp on Monday, I guess shoring things up to move this visit date up. Got it. I just don't, again, we'll wrap up with this. I just don't see Calipari consummating this unless he's convinced that he's got a real chance here, not just window dressing, not just, we know what we're doing. I can't think of anything else that makes sense here, because it makes sense. Kansas being an Adidas school, Kansas being a blue blood, Kansas having Bill Self, great recruiter, Kansas already bringing the guy in on a visit a few weeks ago and blowing him away. None of that's hard to imagine. It's easy to understand then why the national folks, they're probably getting some information that says, look, this is, pretty much a situation where this is where it's going to head. You got crystal balls out there. Take Kenny to Kansas. So, but this isn't Calipari's first rodeo. And again, I can't rule out the possibility that he maybe realizes it's a long shot, but still going to bring him in because of the relationship. I guess that's possible. I just don't think there's a reason to do that with everything else he's got going on later this week with other visitors that he's maybe still got a better shot to get, even if he has to wait till the spring. I don't see him wasting his time on a long shot. That's where I'm kind of circling back to. Again, we've already said it. It's just me trying to get it figured out as to why this makes sense. Because it makes sense if you still got a shot. And that's the only thing that makes sense to me. All right, thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. Still, I think. I'm starting to question that. It got really busy tonight. And I've just been, I've had articles I've been writing. I've had all kinds of stuff. I think I've cranked out 4 or 5 articles that got published today. And then technically this will be my second one of these tonight. And then I've just been on the phone all day as this stuff has gotten crazier and crazier. I appreciate all of you. We'll be back on as soon as we need to bring you more intel. I hope you liked the little Caleb Holt bit that came in real time while we were doing this. Until next time, I appreciate all of you. Be great in all your endeavors. We'll see you soon.